What's up, you guys? Wowee. Millville was this past Saturday, and this was so much I had to chop it into two videos. So I'm going to start with the 250 class because that had a major feel-good story. But before I do that, guys, remember, subscribe if you think that I'm worth listening to, or if you just want to hear some, or if you just want to see some more of my games. I've already posted a few already. I have one more coming up next, or before this week's over, hopefully. But in the meantime, I'm ready to talk about the last round at Millville. This is going to be the 250s only. The 450 class will likely be on Friday. So with that being said, subscribe, and let's get into this. Here comes my banner. Like I said, I'm just going to talk about the 250s. Haiden Deegan wins OA. Jeremy Martin wins Moto 2 in final career race. Now, I'm going to get the elephant out of the room. Jeremy Martin, holy mother of God. Can you believe that guy? After how many crappy rides he'd been putting in so far, the guy had already announced his retirement at the start of the year, but he does come out for a 3-round deal with the Star Yamaha team. Doesn't do good in the first 2 rounds, and you think that perhaps Jeremy Martin was going to ride off into the sunset with another mid-pack moto win, or I should say mid-pack moto finish for the day. But wow, that was far from the case. And there was a time where I was actually pulling for J-Mart to possibly win the overall, because the way that he was riding, it looked like a strong possibility. The way that he got those 2 hole shots in both motos was not only a big shocker, it was also a good indication that the old Jeremy Martin was back. Now, the unfortunate part was J-Mart was supposed to ride in the 450s. Granted, he was riding for factory Honda and even the Geico Power Sports Honda before that closed up shop. But unfortunately, some injuries kept Martin in the 250 class. And he was starting to become another version of Steve Lamson, except Steve Lamson was able to ride the 250 class at the time, and he would race the 125 class outdoors back when it was 250s and 125s back in the day. The difference there was that Jeremy Martin was in the 250 class his entire career. And with this new point structure in Supercross, or the new point out rule for the 250 class, there was no way Jeremy Martin was going to ever point out, which is exactly why I think the AMA should go back to points and have the riders score, as I said, and have the riders score either more than 100 or 150 points in 3 seasons, period. It doesn't have to be consecutive. That way, then, it's back to an entry-level class. And had they done that, Jeremy Martin might be riding some races on the 450. And he could still ride the 250 in motocross if he wanted to. But odds are, if you're going to go up to the premier class, you're going to want to leave the 250 class behind for good. That's what guys like Villapoto did. Dungy did that. James Stewart did that. Just about everybody in the 450 class has left the 250 class behind for good, unless you're some foreign import like Greg Albertine, who never ran the 125 class. So, while that was a feel-good story for J-Mart, his competition had some major, major trouble. One of which, Joe Shimoda. My goodness, can this guy buy a break? And I say that literally, not just on the track. Because Joe Shimoda was looking good in the first moto. Haiden Deegan won that one. Shimoda was right behind him, and Jeremy Martin had fallen to third. Then Shimoda takes the lead, and it looks like he's got the overall, and then he has a problem with his rear brake and falls back to 5th. And the whole time I'm thinking, and when Shimoda had gone over that berm after the finish line jump. I was like, how do you do that? There's no way that should have happened. And as it turns out, Shimoda had no rear brake. And I'm thinking, what are the odds of that? Seriously. And for someone like Shimoda, this is the kind of thing that can really shatter all the momentum you built up from sweeping the motos at Redbud. Because now Shimoda is going to have to build again. And there's a chance that that may not happen. That whenever something bad happens to you, usually a lot of bad moments are soon to follow. Because, you know, you think about this. Think about David Villeman back in the day when he was leading the 250 Supercross Championship in 2002. He sat out Daytona with a 20-point lead, gave it up, and he never made up any more points on Ricky Carmichael. All because he crashed during a photo shoot during that time. James Stewart is another example in Supercross, and so is Travis Pastrana in motocross. Think about this. Stewart, 2002, is doing so good in the first part of the 125 West, and then has all kinds of crashes and mid-pack finishes to a point where he loses the series lead and eventually the championship. And Travis Pastrana, on that note, who could forget he was leading the 2001 125 Motocross Championship. Then he crashes on the final lap of the second moto at Millville, at Unadilla, and that was it. His bid for the championship was eventually over. So try to think about that if you're in Joe Shimoda's shoes. I really hope that Shimoda doesn't go through that, and that was just a bump in the road. But Washougal is a track that I would expect Shimoda to maybe come back with a vengeance and maybe, just maybe, get back on the winning side of things. So, Haiden Deegan winning the overall, definitely no surprise there. But like I said earlier, I was pulling for Jeremy Martin to possibly win the overall. And if he didn't get it, I hoped he won the second moto, which he did. And that was good on J-Mart for home track advantage. And he was able to ward off any challenge that Deegan threw his way. But as for other competitors, I've already talked about Joe Shimoda. Tom Vial, I don't know what this guy's been eating, what he's been drinking, but nothing seems to be working for him. I couldn't believe that his second moto rather was over after the first turn. And now word on Racer X is that Tom Vial is out for Washougal. And another guy who also needs a good break to come his way, Levi Kitchen. I don't know what this guy is doing, but nothing seems to be working for him too. I don't know if Levi Kitchen is not gelling with that Pro Circuit Kawasaki. One wonders, but something tells me that Levi Kitchen is not happy on that Pro Circuit Kawasaki. I mean, who can really agree? Because his results have to be solid proof. He even exited the Supercross season after his bad crash at Daytona. But then again, you never know if the length of this season is starting to take a toll on guys like Levi Kitchen. Because although he only ran the 250 East Coast in Supercross, supposed to run the West, but got moved over to the East after a practice crash. But, you know, one wonders because Kitchen has signed a 3-year extension with the Pro Circuit Kawasaki team. But something tells me that 3-year deal might turn into 2 years, let alone if he's lucky, really. If he puts in performances like this. But now we're heading to his home track at Washougal. Hopefully he can somehow turn things around there. But we'll just have to wait and see. So, anyway, to bring up Jeremy Martin once more, how many of you guys got callbacks to guys who won their last pro races in their hometown races, in their hometown cities? Guys like Larry Ward and Mike LaRocco. When Larry Ward won Seattle in the Kingdom in 1999, that was the last time they were running that Supercross in the Kingdom. Then it was torn down in 2000. And then Mike LaRocco wins his hometown race at the RCA Dome, the old RCA Dome in Indianapolis. And that was his last career win in 2004. So those are really feel-good stories then and still are today, just like with Jeremy Martin's second moto ride. It wasn't an overall win, but if I'm J-Mart right now, I'm just walking away happy with my career. Even though it didn't turn out, I'm sure, the way that he wanted it to. Because when you put in rides like that, there's always a part of you that's going to want to come back for another race and maybe duplicate that and think, oh, maybe I got that mojo again. But for J-Mart, his good days are behind him. I say just walk away. And that's where I'll leave it. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And remember, subscribe. I'll have my 450 video up on Friday. And I'll see you all then. So thanks, guys. We'll see you for Washougal.